Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, the Common Magician, and I've got something interesting to try with you. This is going to be a conversation, an addendum, kind of an extra concept that I'm going to share regarding my book, Any Card at Any Number, Thoughts on Any Card at Any Number from a Common Magician, available at Penguin, recently reviewed by David at Magic Orthodoxy. So this is not specifically in the book, but in the book I talk about a concept that I refer to as the 52 Chorale. And it deals with equivoque with 52 options, right? Which seems like kind of an insurmountable feat, that many different options. Well, it can be done, and I talk about doing that. And one of the concepts that I talk about in there, in the 52 Chorale chapter, is arbitrary justification. Now, that is a term that I came up with referring to a particular method in magic that is used quite widely, actually, but to my knowledge has not had a name put to it. It can show up in a lot of different ways. It can be associated with multiple outs, equivoque. It can be associated, really, it's always associated with limitation that is undetectable in some way. And that happens a lot in magic. For example, there's a very well-known magician that has an any card at any number that performed on national television recently. And the way the number is solicited, the statement is, we need a number 1 through 20, but make it difficult, make it high. Well, if you think about what is being said there, you really end up in a bank of about 5 different numbers that you can pick from, and that's really all you have if you really kind of think through that. And the spectator doesn't catch on to the fact that they have been arbitrarily limited, right? And the arbitrary limitation is make it hard, something high, right? Make it hard. That the arbitrary application is that it needs to be hard, and hard means high. Therefore, I have to pick in a range that's been undefined but has actually been very defined. Arbitrary justification. Now, in the chapter, I talk about how arbitrary justification can be applied really to any place in the deck. It can be applied to the card. It can be applied to the number. It can be applied to a lot of different things, and if you think about magic, there's a lot of places where arbitrary justification is made to pigeonhole the spectator into a corner that is much more easily managed, okay? So let's talk about how this can be done even more than what I talk about in the book, which allows us, I think, to deal with the cards in a more direct way, without some of the outs that I talk about in my particular application of the any trick. So let me just demonstrate it for you. I've got a deck of cards here that we'll use just for free selection. You just have to trust that this is just a regular deck of cards shuffled up, used for selection. This is not part of the method at all. What I would do is I would have a spectator choose a color, black or red, right? So they'd pick a color, black in this case. And then I would say, well, we've got spades, we have clubs. So among the black cards, could you narrow that down to either spades or clubs? And they would come to spades, right? So we also have values. We have values ace through king, 13 different values. Could you pick one to go with the spades? And we have ace to go with the spades. So we're thinking of the ace of spades. Now, normally you wouldn't want to go with that if someone just said ace of spades, but here we were very methodical and we came to it. Ace of spades is what we're dealing with. So we also have values, or rather positions in the card, in the deck. And what I want you to do is I want you to kind of narrow down. Do you want to go with the higher cards or the lower cards in the deck? Heads means higher, tails means lower. So we'll just flip here and see what we get. So heads is higher. So we're going to go very high in the deck, very close to the top. We don't want to go too close to the top, otherwise this isn't very interesting. But let's say somewhere around 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that range. You got quite a range that you can pick. So let's pick a number somewhere in there and you can settle on. Let's say this is 3, so we'll say that it's 13. Right, 13 is where you're at. What I've got here is a deck of cards, and we'll take these out. We'll just make sure we get them all. And just be aware, these have been sitting in the open, right? And I shuffled the deck. I put them into the box. They've been sitting there. I've done nothing with it. Nothing whatsoever. It's just been sitting there waiting for you. You made a selection. You chose a color, which was black. You chose a suit, which was spades. You chose a value, which was ace of spades. You decided to use the cards near the top of the deck, right? And in there you picked a number. You went with 13. And that's, you had a wide range. You could have had any number you wanted, any card you wanted, but you have ace of spades, 13. What I want you to do is I want you to take the deck and I want you to deal face up right here to the 13th position. So they would do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is 13. This is 14 through 52. You can see all the cards here, but this is 13, and it is the ace of spades. So this is arbitrary justification. How much arbitrary justification? Only a tiny little bit. Only a tiny little bit. Because let's really think about what's gone on here. Could they pick any color? Yes, they did, right? Black. Could they pick any suit? Yes, they did. They picked spades. Could they pick any value? Yes, they did. Ace, right? That is completely free. Absolutely completely free, right? Could they pick higher or lower? Did they really have any choice in there? Yes, they did have any choice. This is actually not arbitrary justification. This is equivoque. But it's a single layer of equivoque. And it's closely related to the multiple out side of equivoque. So equivoque and multiple outs are kind of like second cousins once removed, right? They are related, but they're not exactly the same thing, except for rare cases in which they are. Sometimes equivoque is dealing in a multiple out. The equivoque is in the arbitrary nature of the words that I'm using. The multiple out is that I can make it mean what I want. I actually have multiple choices that I can make there to give me the out that I want. I say higher or lower cards in the deck, and I talk about this in the book, in the 52 Corral. It doesn't matter what they say. In this case, if they say higher, right, which was the heads, I can say, okay, these cards close to the top. Literally, geographically, the cards that are higher in the deck, right? If they said tails lower, if they said, well, I'll go with the lower cards in the deck, right? I can say, well, let's go with the lower values in the deck. So we're thinking of a very low number, but not too low, right? That's a pretty solid out. Equivoque multiple out that I've been using for a long time, and nobody picks up on that one, right? Because geographically, you have high and low, shallow and deep, high and low. And what you do is once they commit to it, you then change the terms of the words. If they say low, you say, okay, very deep. The lower cards in the deck, very deep. And you don't over-explain this, you just say it. You just identify it that way. Lower, so the lower cards very deep in the deck. We want to go down to these very, very low cards, and then you start to give numbers, right? This part here is where we have arbitrary justification. Okay, this next part. I'm going to give them a range of numbers that sort of fits into where they're at. I don't want them to pick anything outside of the numbers that I'm giving, so I say, by the way, in my stack, the number really was at 10. That's actually the number of the ace of spades in the stack, 10. I'm going to give them a margin of 3 more or 3 less. So once I know 10, I'm going to work backwards from there, and I think 9, 8, 7. So I'm going to say 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Right? That's the limit that I'm giving them. I'm giving them the number minus 3 plus 3. And then it's a simple matter of doing a shift when I take the cards out. And I don't have to be clean about this. I either am going to peel the cards out face up and hold back 3 in the spread and drop them to the bottom and set the cards down. Or I'm going to peel off from the top as I take the cards out, right? So in this case, in 13, I know it's at 10. Just make sure it's in the right spot. I know it's at 10. I need to add 3 to that if I want to get it up to 13, right? 13 is what we decided on. That's a huge margin, by the way, because you're looking at 7 cards. I just want to deal with this. You have banks of 13 cards in suits in the deck. 13 cards in a suit in the deck. That's 4 banks. 4 banks. 7 is more than half of those, right? 7 is right in the middle. So when you have a bank of 7 numbers for them to choose from based on what they choose high or low, that's a really big group to choose from. That's quite a few outs. But it only means shifting 3 cards. Okay, now I'm going to explain the other outs here in a minute, the other ways that you can arbitrarily justify other locations. But we need to add 3 cards to the top, right? So I know that the backs are on the back part of the deck, the part of the box that's showing the back is the back. So I'm going to flip this over, and then I'm going to slide out, and I'm going to just hold back. I'm going to peel back 3 cards very openly, right? And then I take these cards out. I slide out 3 cards. I hold back. I take the rest of them. These cards drop automatically to the bottom, and then I take them, pick them up with my fingers, and then I set this down. And I can even kind of make sure that there's nothing left in there, square it up, and I'm good. This flies right by. Remember that this presentation started with me shuffling the cards and putting them in the deck, in the box. I think that's very vital in this kind of any card to any number, because if you just start with a box with the cards in it, that's just screaming stack, right? Now the spectator doesn't normally think about it in that way, but come on, it doesn't hurt to add that one convincer of a false shuffle and then put it into the box. Now, when I take it out, it seems much more fair. I have a lot more leeway to just kind of sloppily take the cards out, square them up, and set them down. There's no way I could just make a card that I don't know where it could be, a card whose location I don't know because it was shuffled, and put it into the right place, no matter how sloppy I am. I could dump the cards out and just collect them up and do that, and I still wouldn't be close to managing this situation, right? But anyway, so I peel off what I want. I box shift, not the Aussie Wind version, right? Not the complex variations of it. I'm only dealing with 3 plus or minus, or none at all. So there I've got it, and then they can count down to 13 and I have it, right? So that is arbitrary justification given that example. Let's do another example. This time, though, I'm going to call out exactly where the card is at in the stack and what I'm going to do with it. So we'll just shuffle this up. Again, false shuffle just for show, whatever false shuffle you want. Put the cards into the box. Plus or minus 3 is what I'm dealing with. Why do color and then suit and then value? Because it's going to justify, arbitrarily again, my number selection, higher or lower. Here's a range, pick one in there, right? It justifies a tiered revelation of choice that helps me get down to where I need to be, right? So you can't just say, name a card. Okay, now do you want to use the higher or lower cards? Well, you have to make the card selection look like the number selection, something I talk about in the book. Let's try one. So color, black or red, black, spade or club, club, value, ace through king, 5 of clubs. In my stack, that is 32. 5 of clubs is 32 in my stack. Okay, so what I'm going to deal with now is minus 3. So I'm thinking 2, 1, 0, 9. Right? So I'm thinking 29 up to plus 3. I need to get that number in my mind. 29 is the one I'm looking at. Okay, so I'm going to now say I have some options here. I know that I'm close to middle. So I might change my justification a bit, my arbitrary justification, and it'll sound like this. I'll say, we're going to cut into, imagine you're going to cut into a deck, but do you want to cut into the higher cards or the lower cards? Now I'm talking about central values, because I'm talking about cutting into a deck. And I'm saying higher cards or lower cards. They don't know what that means yet, right? So now they're going to pick higher or lower. heads, higher. Okay, so we're going to cut into the middle, but we'll go to the higher values there. Let's say, deeper into the deck. Let's say 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, somewhere in that range. What do you want? Now I've given them my range of 7 numbers, which is 1/8 of the deck, from a location that they think they picked. Higher value, cutting into the deck. This is all very well justified, right? And it's arbitrary. I'm making the decisions on it, but it's very well justified. I'm talking about cutting into the deck. Higher or lower, they pick a number. If they went lower, I'd say, okay, we'll go with kind of the deeper section in the deck, lower down in there, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, somewhere around there. Now they pick a number. We have 4, 34. So this was 32. They're going with 34, which is going to be 32, 33, 34. It's +2. I need to get 2 more cards on top of my stack, right? So when I open this up, I'm going to open it. And remember, I'm only dealing with a margin of 3. It was 32, 33, 34, 35. If they go to the end, 35, I know it's 3 more. I know where my limit's at. But this is 34. So what I need to do is I need to get 2 cards onto the top. So when I pick this up, I'm going to open it and turn the deck over to the face. I'm going to, this is my view, I'm going to let the cards drop out, but I'm going to peel back 2 cards as I take them out. The other 2 cards drop down. I slide them down, pick them up. I dump like I'm looking. This looks very sloppy, and then I set it down and square it up. This looks quite fair. The methods are too deep. There's too many methods in play. You have a stack, you have equivocate, you have arbitrary justification, you have not a very big shift, right, to do. You know that you're only going to be displacing a couple of cards. The deck was shuffled as a throw-off at the beginning. There's too many methods going on for this to matter. You don't need to worry about that. Shifting a couple cards to the top or the bottom really does not matter. There's a lot of ACAN effects, right, that deal with picking up a spread and leaving a couple cards behind and throwing them on top, for Pete's sake, right? That's way out in the open. Surely you can do this. So we've done it. Now, when they get to 34, they're going to hit the 5 of clubs. If we do it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34 is the 5 of clubs, and we've hit it, right? So that is how you would deal with the middle. You give a range, and then you talk about cutting into the deck. You want to go cut to the higher cards or the lower cards, right? And whatever that means, that either means deep or it means shallow. You give them the range, they pick one. What if it's all the way out at the end, right? Well, first of all, if they're picking a card that's all the way on the end, either the top or the second from the top or the second from the bottom, you don't solicit a number at all. You take the cards out directly, right? And then you set it down and you say, I want you to go ahead and turn it over and look at the face. And you can either peel one off or not, or leave it where it's at, or whatever. You really only want to use this if your margin is going to land, third position from the top or the bottom in the direction away from that placement. That's when you would use it. But you can really justify anything. We're going to go very high, but we don't want to go. We're going to go to the top cards in the deck, but we're going to go too high, right? We want to make sure that this is interesting. So let's say you've got, like I did before, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? But it could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? It could be that. It could be very low, right? It could be one of the higher numbers way down at the bottom. It could be 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, but it could also be 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? You can justify anything. If you don't want it to be very close to the end, you could say, we're going to go very deep, but we don't want to go too deep or this is going to get really boring. So let's say it's somewhere around 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, somewhere around there. If it's close to, I would say, 20 through 35, if that's where your hit is at, then I would talk about cutting the deck. Do you want to go higher with higher or lower cards when we cut into it? Right? Now you're talking about cutting the deck when you've arbitrarily justified picking something central on one side or the other. So using terminology to arbitrarily justify something, and this avoids the joker outs that I use in any. You don't have to have it. You just have the 52 cards in your stack the way you want, and then you're just talking about peeling one or two. If the math is too difficult for +3 or -3, just do 2, and it still gives you 5 outs to deal with. You can name 5 different cards. It's the hit plus or minus 2. And then you're talking about just peeling or shifting 1 or 2 cards. You don't have to use this kind of shift. You can use any kind of box shift you want. But just shifting 2 or 3 cards, I think, is extremely accessible and very easy to do to get you really close to an ACAN where the cards are sitting in the box. You don't have to deal with jokers and justification, removing jokers or adding them or counting from a spread. You really can just have only 52 cards kind of using this strategy here. So that's my gift to you, a little bit more discussion on arbitrary justification, the 52 corral, equivoque, magician's choice, multiple outs, all this flimflammery that can be done really with words and nuance and subtlety and a deck stack of your choosing. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Good luck with that. Happy magicking.